Good afternoon and welcome to the SR520 Portage Bay Bridge and Roanoke Lid Project's July monthly construction meeting. I appreciate everybody taking the time out of their busy summer afternoons to be with us today to learn about some exciting construction updates that we have for you folks. My name is Alan Van and I'm the Public Information Manager for Skanska, and I'll be kicking us off today before we dive into some construction updates for you folks. Next slide, please. During today's meeting, you'll be hearing from myself and Robin Clark, Skanska's community liaison. We also have a couple of other members of the Skanska and Washout team available on the call as well, so you may be hearing from them throughout the presentation, but mostly you'll be hearing from the two of us. We are scheduled to go for approximately an hour, which will include a brief presentation and a Q&A at the end of the meeting, but we may end up finishing early. Next slide, please. For today's meeting, we want to provide you with an update on what we've completed over the last few weeks since we last gave an update on June 26th, and what we have planned ahead with utility work on the western side of the project, and give an overview of what's to come for the rest of 2025, including some upcoming nighttime construction, upcoming utility work, some planned street closures, and more information about our upcoming pile driving for the rest of the year. With that, I'll pass it over to Robin Clark to discuss construction. Thank you.
Alrighty. Thank you, Alan, and welcome everybody that's new here, and welcome back to everybody that's been here before. I'm excited as always to give you guys the monthly construction update. If you'll go to the next slide, please, Dakota. All right, so we'll kick it off today with just kind of an overview for folks that are new on the line of our construction project, couple key elements and key schedule highlights. Then we'll dive into some of the construction updates for this month and going forward in our schedule. The picture you're looking at here is our conceptual rendering of the project at its completion. We're scheduled to substantially complete our work in 2031, and that'll include two new seismically upgraded bridges, the Portage Bay Bridge going eastbound and going westbound. That'll replace the existing SR520 bridge that you see today. We will also have some of the pedestrian trail connections that you see kind of pointed out there on that picture, the SR520 trail that will connect bikers and pedestrians to both the east and west side of the bay, get you to the Bill Dawson Trail, and then get you up to where we are constructing a new Roanoke lid. From there, we'll be connecting that new lid to the north and south communities and neighborhoods, the Roanoke Park area and the North Capitol Hill area. Other improvements include some landscaping upgrades and roadway, sidewalk, hardscape improvements, lighting improvements that we will be constructing throughout this project. Next slide. A little bit on our project schedule here. As I mentioned, we are looking to substantially complete our work in 2031. The bulk of our activities are going to be from this year until 2030. With some of those key elements listed there on the screen. We've got our Portage Bay Bridge construction for both what we call the north and south bridge, but these are directional travel of eastbound and westbound bridges. During that period of time, we'll also focus on the removal of the existing bridge in approximately 2027 to 2028. Throughout the whole process of the bridge construction, we'll be continuing our work on the Roanoke lid, building that up from the ground level to the top. And then we'll have some work towards the last 3 years there on landscaping and urban design. What I do want to highlight down at the bottom is something that folks who have been on these meetings before are a little bit familiar with. We have our pile driving activities that have been occurring for folks in and around our job site areas. You guys have probably seen some bridge work going up, a lot of cranes, a lot of construction activity there. We are working on constructing two temporary work bridges, work trestles, if you will, that allow us to access the final bridge construction areas without having to significantly close SR520 as it is right now. There will be a series of traffic shifts, but essentially this work bridge gives us a lot of work zone access, a lot of leeway to lessen our impacts on the current traffic. And I say that to say that we have, in order to do that, the foundations for those temporary work bridges, we have to pile drive the foundations of the bridge. Excuse me. Pausing a little there. Our first season of impact pile driving, where we use an impact hammer to install these foundations, wrapped up this past April 30th. We're currently in this out of water, out of impact pile driving season, kind of a summer timeframe from April to September 1st. And then on September 1st, we'll resume our season 2 of this impact pile driving. Again, for folks that are familiar with this, we are still continuing our vibration installation throughout the year. And then we pause this impact pile driving in the water just due to some of the environmental restrictions that we have on our job. And we want to be mindful of those as we continue to build our work. All right, next slide, please. So now we'll get into some of the current construction activity updates. Next slide. Okay, kicking it off strong, we have our select tree and removal schedule. I'll kind of start it off at a high level here. Our current construction activities at a high level do include what I mentioned before, which is our vibratory pile driving. That'll be continuing throughout this out of water impact pile driving season. So that will be continuing through September 1st and then on through the rest of the year to continue building our access road, especially on the north side of the existing 520 bridges and our access coming off of East Montlake Boulevard there, the east side of our project. We'll talk a little bit more about that here later in the presentation. We're continuing to build that access road from Montlake Boulevard. And in addition to that, we've been having some crews go out and do some select tree and vegetation removal. The map that you guys see here has those sections highlighted of that select tree removal and vegetation removal, including some of the completed areas, some of the upcoming tree removal areas that are in the very near future for our work plans, and then some of the general remaining areas that we haven't quite got to yet and we're holding off on at this time just to kind of maintain a balance of not removing those prior to really our work starting in the area, if you will. Just to touch a little bit more on the process of tree removal and vegetation removal in these areas, we've identified all of these areas with our partners at WashDOT and our design partners as trees and vegetation that are going to be removed because they conflict with the permanent infrastructure of the project. For example, some of the new bridge connections and the Roanoke lid, the future lid, those will conflict with some of the existing trees as they stand. So we go through a process before these are selected for removal. We have several steps, including a tree inventory that we do throughout the project, consultation with a certified arborist, and we do site walks with, again, our partners at WashDOT to make sure that we are not removing anything that's not necessary for construction and the final project. We also have plans to landscape and install new trees and vegetation at the end of the project, which I have some personal excitement about because I'm helping coordinate with our team on that. So something to look forward to once we're getting closer to the end of this job. Next slide, please. All right. Starting on some of the east side updates, east side of our project here, and I call it east and west of the Portage Bay just for directional reference. We closed the Bill Dawson Trail back in May, and we've made quite a bit of progress since then on some of the activities that we're utilizing this trail closure for. One such activity is for those work trestles. So what you see in this picture here is part of our south work trestle. It shows some of those piles that I was mentioning earlier that are installed right pretty much in the trail. But eventually that landing or deck that you see on the right side of the picture will connect to Montlake Boulevard and some of the SR 520 connection ramps so that we're able to bring our equipment and material off of the main local streets and onto our work zone and work bridge. So in addition to this work, we've been able to clear our select vegetation and trees in that area, continue work on our north temporary work trestle that also extends over the trail. We've installed some of our additional temporary piles for the temporary off-ramp that we will be constructing and swapping traffic onto later this year. Again, something I'll talk about here in a moment. And we've been constructing a temporary haul road to move our equipment across the work trestles, primarily on the north side of the existing 520 alignment. Next slide, please. So I talked a little bit earlier about our north access road and access egress from Montlake Boulevard. What you're looking at here is our planned access, kind of in a graphic sense, to connect our local streets, Montlake Boulevard, for example, to the work trestle. This allows us to bring things like concrete trucks, personnel trucks, large pieces of equipment, large material onto the work trestle without having to schedule and implement large lane closures or SR 520 closures that back up traffic. This allows us a little more leniency on some of the work zones as well, because we don't have to worry about some of the safety concerns that come with interfacing with you guys from either a pedestrian standpoint, a biking standpoint, or a driving standpoint. So right now, the current work for this north access road is that we've established the access point, set up some site security fencing. We've started to grade out the road itself, which is what you can see kind of in purple there, the alignment of the road. And then we've started to build the embankment and grade out some of the area surrounding that just to make it a stable access egress. Eventually what we'll do, and I'll have you flip to the next slide here, Dakota. Eventually what we'll be getting into here, as you can see on the picture, we'll be paving that haul route so that eliminates all of the major track out that could be potentially caused if we were to just drive on dirt and gravel. So we have a little bit of that paved on the very far side of the picture, the part that connects to Montlake Boulevard right now, to start those efforts of controlling track out. And I say track out just as a side note, to eliminate dust and debris from getting on the road. Eventually from that pavement, going down towards the very left side of that blue area that's highlighted for the paved haul route, we'll pave that out and it will connect eventually to our north work trestle. Next slide, please. All right, some upcoming construction that I want to really highlight for you guys, especially with our Boyer stair closure and utility work. Next slide. So one of the big activities that we've been preparing for this year and coming up pretty quickly on here is our Boyer stair closure. We've talked about it in some past meetings and updates with you guys, but we really want to emphasize it here and some of the meetings moving forward because we are getting ready to hit the ground running. So this summer, coming up here within the next month or so, we are going to officially close the Boyer stairs for 5 years. This is going to be for the construction, similar to what I mentioned with the trees and vegetation, the construction of our permanent infrastructure, including the new Portage Bay bridges and some of the surrounding hardscape and connections. This will also be for, right off the bat, our utility relocation, including a new, newly relocated 12-inch water main and a 26 kV power line that we're going to take from where it currently sits overhead and install it underground so it's out of the way of our construction. So a couple things to note on that. Crews will be working along several of the local streets that you guys are probably familiar with. We'll be working along Boyer Avenue, East Roanoke Street from 10th Avenue to east to Boyer Avenue East, and in a small portion of the Roanoke Park. You can see that there on the picture to the right. We have some of the blue areas highlighted for areas that we expect to have some traffic impacts. And then we have the yellow area for some of the utility work that we expect to install. Next slide, please. So some of the expectations that you guys can look for when we're doing this construction work. We'll have some noise and vibration and dust and lighting impacts, including what you see on the screen. Typical utility installation will include trenching, which is an excavation, small in width and typically utilized with some shoring elements to hold the stability of the trench. We'll be using hand tools such as drills, saws, and jackhammers on some of these utilities and on some of the demolition aspects of it. We'll also be using excavators, concrete trucks, dump trucks, and other small mobile pieces of equipment to be able to do the work. We will have our crews out there digging the trenches, removing part of the pavement, working their way up the hillside as they get this utility work knocked out. And for the most part, we will be working during the day, but we do have some potential to roll into night shift. We'll keep you guys updated if that happens, but those would be where lighting impacts come from if we have to utilize light plants for when it gets a little bit dark in the evening. Next slide, please. All right, to focus on a little bit more with some of those impacts, I know folks are experiencing a lot of traffic and congestion these days. So we want to be kind of open with you guys on what to expect here with the utility work. During this work, you guys can expect some flagging, traffic shifts, lane closures, and some short-term closures on the streets that you see here in the graphic. That includes East Roanoke Street from Broadway to 11th, including 10th overpass, the East Roanoke Alley, and Boyer Avenue East between East Edgar Street and underneath the existing 520 bridges. So we do encourage you guys to find alternate routes. If we have a full closure of a road, we will provide a suggested detour for you guys. But if we have lane closures or flagging, it just may take a little bit longer. So plan ahead for some delays in those areas, or plan to have an alternate route. We will notify you guys through our typical channels, whether it be Construction Corner or through some of these meetings, but we'll always give you guys notice of those closures before they happen. Next slide, please. So one of the utilities that I mentioned that we'll be installing is a water line, a 12-inch water line, water main, if you will, that you can see here again on this graphic. What we're doing is we're relocating this water line in order to then relocate a 26 kilovolt power line right next to it. So we're going to begin with the 12-inch water main, and it'll run basically from that area that you see on the picture, from the Boyer Stairs area to through East Roanoke Street Alley, and then up to East Roanoke Street at the intersection with 11th Avenue East. We expect the entirety of this work to take 6 months, which will happen with the 26 kilovolt relocation. So these two relocations will happen in conjunction with each other. So while the water main might take a little bit less time, the overall utility impacts will take about 6 months. Next slide, please. And then on the note of electrical line relocation and our 26 kilovolt relocation here. So we are taking what's currently out on site is an overhead power line, the 26 kilovolt power line, and we're going to relocate that underground. Again, these utilities are being relocated because they conflict with the new project infrastructure, including the new North Portage Bay Bridge or the new westbound Portage Bay Bridge. We'll be doing that again in tandem with the water main relocation this summer. And it'll extend a little bit further, so it has a little bit longer of a timeline of impacts. And you can see here in the yellow areas some of the roads and locations that we will be getting into. The extension of the work begins just on the south side of the existing 520 bridge underneath it, and it'll run along Boyer Avenue East, cross up towards East Roanoke Street, and end towards the Roanoke Park. All right, next slide, please. Okay, to switch over to some different impacts of what we expect coming up this year. Upcoming nighttime work. So for August, we will resume some around-the-clock work under our major public project construction noise variance. Always love saying that one 5 times fast. So for some of this around-the-clock work, that will include removing some concrete bridge barriers, continuing to build our temporary off-ramp for traffic to Montlake Boulevard East from SR 520 East. This includes cutting piles to certain heights, welding and carpentry, building and paving, and just generally creating this new temporary ramp. All of this is going to be below our noise levels that we are permitted to produce on the job because we have to stay within compliance of our major public project construction noise variance. We also call it the MPPCNV. It is a project-wide permit that the Seattle Department of Construction and Inspections granted to us for certain nighttime work that we don't need to get additional temporary noise variances to conduct. So we'll be continuing that here in August. We want to make sure you guys are aware of it. We don't expect it to be exceedingly noisy, but we will have our 24/7 noise monitors running. So if we do if we do encounter exceedances, then we will stop the work, assess our operation, and find ways to either resume at a quieter level or resume at a different time during the day. Next slide, please. All right, so I've been talking a little bit about this temporary off-ramp to Montlake Boulevard. For those of you who've been in previous meetings, you might recognize this. But for those who are new, we are constructing a temporary off-ramp from eastbound SR 520 to Montlake Boulevard East. Right now, if you drive down SR 520 East and take the exit right in the right lane there, you'll end up right on Montlake Boulevard. What we're constructing is basically a temporary off-ramp where eventually we're going to shift traffic onto this temporary off-ramp to allow us to later in the following years of this construction process, shift traffic so that we can construct new elements of the project and not disrupt traffic for a significant period of time. So where we're at in the process of that is that we've placed all the piles that we need and that are necessary to support this temporary off-ramp structure. Next, we're going to be working on what we call the superstructure, which is the deck. So we'll cut the piles to the proper height and we'll begin building some of those top level elements that eventually people will be driving on. Next slide, please. Touching a little bit on the mitigation of nighttime noise, because this does tie into some of that work with the temporary bridge. As a reminder, we do mitigate all of our nighttime noise. In addition to the noise monitors, we typically will install acoustic fence around some of our select work areas. We anticipate some installation of that this fall. We also use temporary noise shields that are slightly more mobile to put around equipment or generators to help dissipate some of that noise. Again, we regularly check our noise monitor data, and we have alerts and alarms set for warning levels and threshold levels if we were to exceed our permitted nighttime noise levels. And then if those approach the warning levels or the threshold levels and we reach exceedance, we'll stop work, reassess our operation, and determine if we're able to proceed at night at a lower level, or if we need to replan our work during a daytime hour, or if we need to apply for, say, a temporary noise variance. You guys can see the QR code there on the right. We do have fairly regular email updates about upcoming construction work. That's another great way to get some of our traffic updates. Definitely encourage you guys to subscribe there. So definitely take a moment to do that if you can. I believe we have that in a later portion of the slides too. So if you don't get a chance to grab that, you will get a chance to grab it again. Next slide, please. All right, upcoming construction on 10th Avenue. Next slide, please. So another element that I'd like to talk about, very similar to some of the utility work that I was talking about earlier, is our upcoming work on 10th Avenue East. In approximately late August, we are planning to close 10th Avenue East between East Roanoke Street on the north side there and East Miller Street down on the south side there. This will allow us to relocate, similar to, again, the utility work I was mentioning before, some overhead trolley bus wires. We're planning to have this as a weekend closure, which would be starting from Friday at 11 p.m. to Monday at 5 a.m. And this will allow us the time to be able to trench underground and relocate those lines. We don't have the dates set officially. We're still working through our scheduling process and getting those dates set, but we will let you guys know in advance of the closure being scheduled. Again, this is an opportunity to kind of get ahead on any plans for alternate routes in those areas, that we will, for this one, provide a detour, an official detour, because it is a full road closure. And then just as another note, because this is, you can see the picture there, there's 10th Avenue East, and you're kind of looking towards the, I would call it the west there. Right in the middle of the picture is a bus stop. So we are working with King County Metro, and they are making some changes to their transit routes. Just be aware of that if you do use that bus stop for any of your commuting. Next slide, please. And pile driving look ahead, touching base on a favorite topic of mine. We have some pile driving look ahead for July through September. So we've completed our limited on land impact pile driving earlier this month. I did talk about earlier in the presentation our in water, out of water seasons for impact pile driving. And then we did have some on land impact pile driving earlier in June. So we're, for the rest of the summer, continuing with vibratory hammer installation only. So we do not anticipate any more impact pile driving until September 1st. September 1st, we will resume our in-water work season number 2, and that'll allow us to resume some of those impact pile driving operations in the water from September 1st to April 30th. As a note on that, our typical hours for construction are 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., but non-pile driving related work will start as early as 7 a.m. and it can continue to 10 p.m. on weekdays with some temporary noise variance conditions. Next slide, please. So these are kind of some of the areas that we'll be focused on for season 2 of pile driving. While our vibratory hammer is not as loud, it does have vibration impacts. The impact hammer is one that we like to focus on because it does have a louder impact, so to speak, with you guys, especially being frontline to the project. So season 2 will be from September 1st to April 30th. You can see in green there the areas that we have completed. And then in the purple striped areas, we have just a couple of areas that we're targeting for season 2. That may change a little bit depending on how we get planned out with our work. But overall, we expect a far less level of impact pile driving for season 2 compared to what folks experienced in season 1. Next slide, please. A little bit more on impact versus vibratory pile driving. So we have our impact pile driving where a hammer basically hits the top of the pile, kind of just drives it into the ground. It makes a sharp sound into the air and into the water and soil, and it allows us to get those foundations grounded into the ground. Our vibratory pile driving uses a different hammer that kind of shakes the pile, the foundation, into the ground. And it has a little bit of a continuous sound, but it's more of a vibration feeling that you guys would experience if you're out there. And the reason we have those different methods is typically just due to ground conditions that we experience beneath the water or when we're getting into the ground on the land side of things. Sometimes we run into more tough conditions, so we have to use the impact pile to get through those harder subsurface levels. Some of the allowed schedules that we have, just due to a little bit of our environmental concerns and some of our other constraints on the job, we have our in-water and on-land schedules. In-water schedule impact pile driving is only permitted from September 1st to April 30th. Vibratory pile driving and on-land impact pile driving are permitted year-round. Next slide, please. All right. I think this might be back over to you, Alan.
Great. Thank you, Robin, for walking us through the presentation. We have about 25 minutes left in the formal meeting, but I do have a couple of quick slides to go through, and then we'll dive into the Q&A. I do not see any questions currently in the Q&A, so as I'm going through the slides, feel free to submit those questions. If nobody has any questions, we may go ahead and end early. But as Robin has mentioned throughout the presentation, we do have several ways to stay informed about the project. On this slide, you can see several different ways to stay engaged. So we have our 24-hour construction hotline at 206-319-4520, our Construction Corner website, where we will be posting updates on any upcoming traffic effects, as well as post some of our key project materials, including FAQs, as well as information about our weekly noise reports as well, our noise monitoring reports. We have our project email address and our project email listserv, where you could sign up using that bit.ly link below. And then we also have several meetings as well. So we have our monthly construction meetings that we typically host Thursdays at noon. We share out that information via social media and our project email updates. And then we also have an upcoming annual in-person open house at Queen City Yacht Club on August 21st. We'll be sharing more information about that via our project email updates in the coming weeks. And if you live within the project vicinity, you'll also be receiving a mailer or a postcard with more information on the open house as well. So be on the lookout for mail from both Skanska and WSDOT in the next couple of weeks. With that, I'm still not seeing any questions in the Q&A. I'm going to pause for about 30 seconds. As a reminder, we do request that you submit all of your questions via the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Our chat is disabled and attendees will remain muted throughout the Q&A portion. So all questions should be going through the Q&A box. And again, if you folks have any questions that come up afterwards, feel free to give us a call at our 24/7 hotline or send us an email. It looks like questions are not trickling in through the Q&A for this meeting. So I think with that, we'll go ahead and send one last reminder if you go to the next slide, and then we'll go ahead and end the meeting early. So if you want to share a recording of this meeting with your neighbors or other members of your household, you can find the recording on our project website, the Construction Corner, sr520construction.com, under Portage Bay. And towards the bottom of the screen, we'll have a link to the presentation materials and a recording of the meeting as well. That should be posted within the next week or so. If any folks have any questions about the recording or have any issues accessing it, please let us know. Oh, and I see a question from Kate about the August 21st open house. It is planned for 5 to 7 p.m. on August 21st at Queen City Yacht Club. We'll be sharing those official details via our email updates, and also there is a link in our bit.ly list of links as well that has a little bit more information about the open house. But with that, I think we can go ahead and end the meeting early. Thank you, everybody, for your time this afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you at either our in-person open house on the 21st or our next monthly construction update meeting in late August. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.